Thanks for tuning in. I hope that you're ready to learn about self care and how to come up with your own individualized self care plan because today, July 22nd, is International Self Care Day. I know that you probably had your calendar marked all year for that. So it's finally here. You guys can finally we can celebrate self care. So today what we're going to be doing, we're going to go through a step-by-step plan on how you can come up with an individualized self-care plan. Okay? So and I want to make sure I give credit where credit is due. The program that we're going to go through today, this is not a program that I have developed by any means. This was developed by Carolyn Jeffries and Cherie Bering, and they are a part of the Department of Educational Psychology and Counseling at the Michael D. Eisner College of Education, and they call this the SUN program, which is the one that we're going to go through. So, in case you don't know me, I'm Kelly Baldwin. I'm the activities coordinator at the Senior Center in Lexington. I've been here for a little over 3 years now, and I have a background in recreational therapy, and I'm really passionate about anything therapy, counseling related. I'm currently in school getting my master's for school counseling. So, anything therapy, counseling related, I'm all here for it. So that's why I'm so excited about this program because self care is something that I have been needing to take a lot more seriously. So, my hopes for this program is that you'll start to take self care a little bit more seriously, and so will I. So, we're going to learn and go through this together. If you have any questions, please don't ever hesitate to ask me, especially, about this program or any of the ones that we're doing virtually. I want to help you guys succeed. That's my goal. That's what we're here for. Help empower you guys. So if you have any questions about anything that we go through or you want more resources, please reach out to me. I'll make sure that I send out my contact info in the information we send out about this program. Okay. So I really wish that we could all be here together. But since we are not able to, I'll make sure that you all have access to these resources that we're going to talk about. I'm really big on assessment tools of assessing, where you're currently at, where you want to be, and how do you know when you've gotten there. So the SUN program comes with a quick self-care assessment, and I'm going to put that in the information that we send out so you can take that if you're interested. This will just help you assess your current self-care strategies. So it gives you an opportunity to rate your spiritual self-care, your school/workplace self-care, your physical self-care, and your psychological/emotional self-care. So, and honestly, I thought that I pretty much knew what this assessment was going to say and come back for me, but I was kind of surprised at some of the things, and it really showed me some of the areas that I really need to work on. Okay, so let's start at the beginning. We're going to start with step 1. Okay, there are 7 steps. There's also optional steps, so technically there could be 8, but there's essentially 7 steps to this program. Oh, before we get started, also, we're gonna do assessing a little bit of ourselves about our current stressors and our current self-care strategies. So if you will just grab a piece of paper, something to write with, you're probably going to want to keep this paper even after the program is over. So make sure that you have something to write with. Okay. Step 1, learn about the importance of self-care. So self-care gets thrown around a lot. It's kind of like a trendy word right now, which it sounds odd, but it's everywhere. It's all over Facebook, self-care, self-care, self-care. And for me, I don't know what comes to your mind when you hear self-care, but I always think face mask and pedicures. So, but it's so much more than that. So normally people are pretty good at taking care of other people and taking care of other people's needs. However, when it comes to themselves, they're not quite so good at taking care of themselves as they are other people. So it this can lead to getting sick, illnesses, getting burned out. Self care means taking responsibility for yourself to maintain a healthy and balanced lifestyle at work and in your personal world through individually determined proactive activities. So, which is exactly what this program is all about. Okay, so step one, just know that self care is so important. And I know this is going to sound so cliche, but you really cannot pour from an empty cup. So, especially if you're in a profession where you're serving other people, you work in a nursing home, you're a caregiver, that can be very taxing. So, you might have to increase your self care strategies that you're doing to make sure that you're able to do your job sufficiently. Okay, so self care, super important. Bottom line, if you realize that, check step one off. Okay? Or if you don't think self care is important, just hang with me until we get through step three. Okay? So, step two, determine your stress level. If you've ever taken any of my other stress management programs, then you know I'm big on assessments, and I'm going to make sure that you have access to these wherever we post this information. So you might not even realize how stressed out you are, especially with everything right now that's happening, with everything that's just changing. There's two assessment tools here that will help you determine your level of stress. So this one, the perceived stress scale, I like this one because this is how you perceive your stress. So two people might be experiencing the exact same event in their life, but one person views it as stressful, whereas the other one doesn't. So, stress, a lot of it is how you perceive what is going on. Now, on the flip side of that, this is called the Holmes and Ray Life Stress Inventory. In both of these assessments, there's a lot of research that has gone into these. These are standardized assessments, so they're not just random. There's been a lot of research that has gone into these to make them reliable and valid. So for this one, this lets you know the events that are happening in your life, how stressful those life events tend to be. And they actually use this tool to say how likely you are, depending on what's going on in your life, to develop an illness in the next 2 years. So that's why it is so important that before it gets to that point where you've gotten too much stress, you've dealt with too much stress over a long period of time, where you start to develop chronic illnesses down the line. That's why it's so important to go ahead and realize, okay, I have a lot of stressful events happening right now in my life. I'm going to need to increase my self-care strategies to make sure that I'm taking care of myself. Okay? Because you might not even realize how many stressful things are happening right now in your life. Like, for example, I took this last week when I was planning out the program, and each life event corresponds with a number value. So once anything that's happening, you add up, once you're done with the assessment, you add up your total of your number assessment, and it'll give you, based on your score, feedback for you. So if you score 150 points or less, you means you're relatively low amount of life change or low susceptibility to stress-induced health breakdown. Now, if you take this and your score is over 300 points, which surprisingly, that's what mine was when I took this. So that's why I'm so excited that we are going to go through this program, because when you're taking on a lot of things, you got to make sure you're taking care of yourself. So if you're at home right now and you're taking care of those grandkids, or you're helping out your family right now because they're in a life transition, you still got to take care of yourself. Because if you don't take care of you, then you can't take care of your family. Okay? So these are just two assessment tools that I will make sure you guys have access to, that you can determine your stress level. Some other things that this little assessment tool goes through: some physical effects of stress, psychological, emotional effects, and then behavioral effects. So it's important to recognize the presence of stress in your life and how it affects you. Many people don't realize the effect that stress has on their lives and health, which is what we were just talking about. So one quick way to assess your level is to complete an informal inventory. So this is just a little bit more informal than the formal assessments that we were previously talking about. So when I read these off, I want you to make a little tally mark or something, that if you have one of the symptoms or signs that I am talking about, just jot down a little tally mark, okay? Just to kind of do a little informal self-assessment of maybe some of the stress-induced things that you are currently experiencing and may not even realize. Okay, so for physical effects, we have increased frequency of fatigue, headaches, sleeplessness, problems concentrating, muscle tension, and hypertension. Some psychological and emotional effects: we have feeling general uneasiness, feeling depressed, negative, nervous, anxious, helpless, not good enough, overworked, out of control, or underappreciated. So, behavioral effects: these are showing signs of procrastination, impatience, short temper, low productivity, taking work home, withdrawal, being preoccupied, complaining frequently about work. So I'm sure whether you are experiencing those things right now in your current life, you have experienced them at some point in your life. So other ways, you don't even have to break it down that specific. Chances are you pretty much know if you're feeling stressed out or not. You just might not realize to the extent. Okay? And it's really important also in this process, just be honest with yourself. If you don't assess yourself honestly, then you're not going to be able to make that long-term change in the end, which is the goal. So step 3, identify your stressors. And that's actually what we're going to do back here. So kind of when I'm reading this, kind of be thinking about, okay, what are my current stressors right now that I'm dealing with? So reflect on and make a list of what causes you stress in your work and personal life. So if you're not working, just think about retirement. And I have heard people say they're more stressed out and they're busier in retirement than they were when they were working. So if that's you, thanks for tuning into the program. All right, so we have general stressors and then more specific stressors. And for your list, you can make them as general or specific as you want. So for general stressors, we have you're overloaded. You have too much to do. Pressure. You have too many demands, obligations, and responsibilities. Inadequate rewards. Too few satisfactions. Interpersonal concerns with coworkers, children, or other family members. Some more specific stressors: personal health issues, isolating work situations, lack of administrator support, lack of time, money problems, accelerated change. Ding, ding, ding. That's a big one right now. I think everyone, in some way or another, your life has changed more than likely. Lack of time, money problems, unrealistic workloads or demands, pressure to perform without resources, which some people, that's very likely. right now, just with so many change. So be thinking about what your stressors are, and I'm going to jot down my top 5. You can we're going to do something with them in a little bit, so try not to make like a list of like 25 things. Try to keep it on a shorter side of your main major stressors. And I will say this program has a nice fancy little chart thing where you can put your current major stressors, your current self-care strategies, but you really don't have to get too fancy with this. Okay, so if this is just going to be on a little jotted sheet of paper, perfectly fine. Carry it around with you everywhere you go. Okay, so I'm going to write down my top 5 things up here, but while I'm doing this, I also want you to be jotting down your top 5 stressors. Okay, and like I said, just be honest with yourself. You're the only one who's going to see these unless you want to have an accountability buddy or unless you want to call me up and tell me what you put. Totally fine. Okay, so for my current major stressors, my number 1, and honestly for me, these are not in any kind of order. These are just my main things that stress me out right now. All right, so I'm currently in school. So all of my schoolwork is done online. So with that does come a lot of freedom, but it is a lot of extra work on top of my job, my full-time job. So one, school, work. Now don't get me wrong. I love my job. Okay, I'm so thankful for my job. But with all the things that have been changing right now and with less direct contact with you guys, it does make it quite a bit more challenging and a lot more stressful. Oh. All right, number 3, I put the world. So that might seem like an odd one, but for me, what I really think was stressing me out, the coronavirus, all of that stuff stresses me out. Racism, all of that stuff stresses me. There's just a lot of stuff. Looking at the media, Facebook, that's pretty stressful. So that's one of my main stressors. 4. Now this is exciting. However, with the current housing market, how it is actually proved to be pretty stressful, but buying a house. So me and my husband, we just recently got married March 15th. So we're in the process right now of buying a house, which is exciting, but it's also stressful just because it's a lot of new information for me. All right, last but certainly not least, mine is going to be my health. Okay, specifically weight. This has been something I've struggled with my whole life. So health and weight, I feel like that's probably always going to be on my list. All right, now, so those are my top 5 things. So I'm going to give you a little bit more time just so you can go ahead and get your list finalized. Think about what stresses you out and just be honest. Also, if you can't think of anything that is stressing you out, then you might not need this program. It's always good to do nice things for yourself. But seriously, if you need a list of some more life events that typically are stressful, refer back to the Holmes Ray Life Stress Inventory. This will give you a whole list. I mean, it covers everything from the death of a spouse, which they rate as the most stressful life event, or the very last one as minor violations of the law. So those are like traffic tickets, things like that. All right, so now that we have all of our major stressors identified, now we're going to look at how we cope with those stressors. Okay, now talking about this, there's going to be healthy coping mechanisms and then there's also unhealthy coping mechanisms. So the goal here is to try to get yourself to go more towards the healthy coping self-care strategies. Okay, so reflect on how you typically cope with stress and check off or list your current coping strategies below. So this is the other side of our chart. So think of how you are currently coping with your stressors. Okay, and I'm going to list a few here. It might get you thinking. So some healthy strategies include being physically active, eating healthy, practicing relaxation exercises. And if you're following my Therapeutic Thursdays or any of my meditation stuff, I'm sending out a lot of opportunities for that. So you could even incorporate that into your stress care plan or your self-care plan. All right, make time for fun and hobbies. So with so many activities kind of decreasing the amount of extracurricular activities that are happening, especially over the summer, you can still have fun. Okay, you don't have to have all these activities and places. You can still have fun. I promise. Okay. Change or manage the conditions causing stress. Be assertive. So that could be even saying no. If you already have 100 things to do, don't agree to do 101. See a counselor, ask for help, follow faith or spiritual beliefs. And the list can go on and on and on for that. So there's a lot of healthy strategies that you could do. So unhealthy strategies, unfortunately, this list can go on and on as well. But the ones that it gives here: live a sedentary lifestyle, overeating, trying to do everything, lashing out, take stress relief medications, smoking, over drinking, isolating yourself, etc., etc., etc. Okay, I don't care if your current coping strategies are healthy. I don't care if they're unhealthy. Be honest with yourself and write them down, okay? Because that's exactly what I'm going to do. I think I'm going to do not agree. Okay, so one of the big things that I like to do, my sister just got a dog, so our whole family has been walking with our dogs. And that's just a fun thing because we talk, we catch up at a safe social distance, and we walk together. So you can't go wrong there. All right, 2. Like I said, I'm recently married, so one of the biggest things that relieves my stress is just spending time with my husband, just laughing, just having a nice time. We're still in that newlywed phase, so. Spend time with husband. And you feel free to go ahead and be making your list right now, because when I'm done with this, we'll go to the next step. All right, 3. This would fall under the unhealthy: eating, stress eating. And this has been a huge thing. Like, star this one. Because I'm home. I'm working from home all day. Like before, I would pack my snacks in the morning, and that would be the only food that I would have for that day. But now I'm at home 2-3 days a week. It depends. And so that has been a huge challenge. And I find that is something that I resort to from teleworking. So that's a big one. 4, isolating. So if I get too stressed out and overwhelmed feeling, I'll just shut down. So, which that's not the best thing to do. And then 5, okay, so my 5th one is praying, religious practice. Whatever your religious practice is, that might be one of your big self-care strategies. So just something to think about with that one. And the next one we have is the optional step, but I'm going to go ahead and just briefly go through that one because um, it does provide some good insight. So the optional step is engage in personal reflection. So reflection on values and worldviews can directly affect our self-care, especially in the areas that include our ability to feel gratitude, our place in the natural world, and our acceptance of ourselves and others. Many people find solace and comfort in their deeper values, beliefs, and practices. The following series of questions is provided to help you reflect on a number of ways to view the world that may affect your self care practice. So, these are just some questions to help prompt you to get you thinking, um, reflecting. So I'm not gonna read all of these. I'm just gonna read a few of them, and just sit there and reflect on them. So, do you tend to wake up every morning with a sense of gratitude, or do you drag yourself out of bed bracing for a trouble-filled day? So basically, do you get up on the wrong side of the bed every day? Or do you wake up just ready to get going with the day? All right. Do you typically count your blessings throughout the day? Or do you use valuable time to ruminate on problems and conflicts? So there's also a Power of Positivity program that I can do, and that whole thing is about that. Are you thinking positively? Are you thinking negatively? And that can have a huge effect on your self care plan. Oh, this is a good one. Do you tend to sing your colleagues' praises, or that could even apply to your family, or do you put energy into gossiping about those around you? So just be mindful of the thoughts that you're thinking and the actions that you're doing every day, because that really can have an effect on your mental health, your self care, and really your overall outlook on life. All right, so this next step has the possibility to get a little bit technical and a little bit complicated, but just listen and we're going to get through it. And you're going to have, on the end of this program, you're going to have the perfect individualized self care plan, and you're not going to regret it. Okay? So, this, let's talk a little bit about direct and indirect approaches to self care. So, stress can be managed by direct and indirect coping strategies. So, direct approaches, these include removing the stressor, recognizing and changing your perception of the situation so that it is no longer stressful, removing yourself from the source of stress, or limiting your exposure to the stressor. Indirect methods involve finding ways to minimize the impact of stressful situations. They include exercising, healthy eating and sleeping habits, relaxing, meditating, setting aside time for yourself, working with others to solve problems, asking for help, and personal counseling. So, our goal for this is to choose and incorporate a daily and or weekly self-care practice that works for you. Okay? We're all different, so all of our strategies are going to be different. So, based on my chart back here, it probably looks very different from your chart. Okay? So, and there is nothing wrong with that, but bottom line, we need to all decrease our stress, especially right now. Okay, so now that you have your list of your current major stressors and your current self-care strategies, I put these down here because this is our next step in the program. We're going to go through and bottom line, the goal is to replace as many unhealthy coping strategies with healthy ones. Okay, because in the long run, that's really going to help. But for right now, for our stressors, we are going to put one of any four of these things next to them. Okay, so I put a little chart down here. E stands for eliminate. LE stands to limit exposure. RF means to reframe, so reframe the way you're thinking about it. And SCS is your self-care strategy that you're currently using. So I'm going to explain those a little bit further. Okay, don't leave me here on the program. I promise we're going to get through it. Okay, so for an E, you're going to put in front of the stressors that you can eliminate from your life. So for each of these stressors, state the method you will use to remove it or remove yourself from it. So if one of your current major stressors was a family member, you know, that might be something that you can either limit your exposure or even eliminate. But that's, you know. All right. So for me, I didn't have any that I could eliminate. So, you know, you definitely cannot eliminate work. No matter what, you got to work. You got to bring in some money. So, reality, you might not be able to eliminate all of the ones that you want. Okay. So that's why these other ones come into play. All right. So then LE, I did have a few of those. So put an LE next to the stressors to which you can limit your exposure. So after each of these stressors, state the method you will use to limit your exposure. All right, so for LE, I put the world. Okay, because for me personally, I'm letting things that I see on Facebook and I'm letting things that I'm watching on the news really stress me out. And those are things that I can, you know, limit my exposure to. Or, I mean, I even could just cut out Facebook or the news altogether. But for me, that's not very realistic. And I know I'm probably not likely to do that. So for me, I'm going to limit my exposure. All right, my health and weight. I put LE and RF on this one. All right, so RF just means to reframe. So instead of me getting so negative in my head and just beating myself down about my health and my weight, you know, I could see it more as an opportunity to lead a more active lifestyle, to eat a healthier, more natural diet. So just reframe the way that you think about it, and you might even be able to trick your mind a little bit. And then limit exposure. That would just be things like, kind of like what I was talking about earlier. I have a hard time being so close right there to the kitchen all day long. So I might try to pack my snacks. That way I don't even go into the kitchen. I could do it just like how I did when I was coming into the office. I could pack my snacks at home and then just put the kitchen off limits, you know, and have a set amount of snacks that I could eat for that exact day. So, you know, you can get a little creative. So, yeah, RF. So I'll review that one again. That one is to reframe. So put RF in front of the stressors that you can reframe. Look at it in a positive light so that you are not as stressful. Yeah, so a big part of the reframing is your attitude about the stressor. Oh, I also put for the house, buying a house, this one I put RF. So instead of me seeing that as like a stressful thing that, oh my gosh, we're making all these changes, like, is this where our kids are supposed to grow up someday? You know, that I can reframe my thinking for that. You know, this is not an end all be all house. So if something goes wrong, it's not the end of the world. All right. And SCS, that's this one right here, self-care strategy. This put an SCS next to the stressors that you can indirectly address using self-care and stress coping strategies. And it actually wants you to identify and write in self-care or stress coping strategy in the additional strategies column. So that goes along with the nice fancy chart that they have here. But like I said, you don't have to do that. I want you to come up with at least one goal, okay? One self-care strategy. All right, so for mine on my chart that I put SCS in, basically these are the things in my life that I have to do. You know, I don't really have a choice. But by using self-care strategies to help combat all that stress that I'm taking on and internalizing from work and from school, I can take that and, you know, exercise more, eat healthier, stuff like that. So for school and work, these are ones that I can combat the stress of that with self-care strategies. Okay? This is really the meat and the bulk of everything that we're talking about, okay? Because you can't, everyone deals with some kind of stress, okay? It's not something that you can just go through life and be like, I'm just not going to have stress my whole life, you know? Chances are you're going to have stress at some point in your life. So that's why these self-care strategies are so important, because really you need them to live a healthy, independent, successful, fulfilling life. Okay, so for whatever you put on yours, so everywhere that you put SCS, the more specific that you can be. I would even write out a whole nother column right here, and I would put SCS specifically what you're going to do, okay? And I'll share with you what mine is in a second. But I'm only setting one self-care goal for myself to do the next week, okay? Because for me, the smaller steps, the more specific, the more successful I'm going to be in actually following through with it. Everywhere where you put limit your exposure, specifically write out how you're going to do this. So for me, I'm not going to get on Facebook first thing in the morning or last thing before I go to bed. Buying a house, reframe how you think about it. Specifically write out how you're going to do that. Chances are you'll be more successful. And same thing for the self-care strategies. This is the one that we're going to focus on. Okay, I'm going to give you some options, some specific self-care strategies and activities that this program recommends. Okay, this is going to get your wheels going and help you think of, oh, you know what, I do enjoy that. I could use that as a self-care strategy. So these include: break whatever work you have to do into smaller tasks and schedule your time as if it was money. Which that is interesting to think about. Because if you're one of those people that keep like a set budget, if you do the same thing with your time, that sounds exhausting to me. I'm just going to be honest. But if that's something that's appealing to you, we're all different. So that might be your success. So periodically think of things that make parenting and teaching / managing fun, and post a cartoon, a funny picture, or humorous story in your workplace. So that just goes back to having fun. Just don't take things so seriously, you know? All right, take a walk or do a short meditation during lunch breaks or before or after schoolwork. Learn to politely say no. So, if anyone has advice on this, please reach out. That is seriously something that I have a hard time doing, is just saying no, because I want to be able to do it all. And I don't know if you can relate to that, but that's one of the big things that leads to all those back there. Learn to politely say no when you are asked to do something that you believe is too much to handle, or ask for collaboration and support to complete it. Pack a healthy snack for midday munchies, whole grain crackers, mini rice cakes, fresh fruit, baby carrots, sliced cucumbers, and the list goes on and on. Just do a healthy snack. Um, Follow the 20-20 rule. I don't know if you've ever heard this, but it says after 20 minutes of sitting, take 20 minutes to do some light exercise or stretches. So that might not be realistic for some people, but some people might be able to incorporate that into their schedule. So spend more time with people who energize and inspire you, and less time with people who drain your energy. That one speaks for itself. When feeling especially stressed, do some deep breathing. Inhale for a count of 4 and then exhale for a count of 4 all through your nose. And I did send, I think 2 weeks ago, I sent something out about deep breathing, which is something, you're like, oh, breathing, everybody does it. But it really can be a tool that you use to really calm you down and center you and reset you, kind of. Count your blessings. Train yourself to see the positives, and at the end of each day, write down. This says 6 highlights of the day. So to make this more doable, I've always wanted to do something like that. So that's going to be. I'm trying to think to make it as specific as I can. I'm not going to add that one to mine right now because I don't want to take on too many new things that I'm going to try to incorporate into my self-care plan. But even if you wrote down one positive or one highlight from your day, that can make a huge difference. I bet you if you did that for a week or even a month, if you wrote down one positive thing for a day, or even if you wrote down one positive thing for a week, for a month, you would look back through that month and be like, oh, I completely forgot, A lot of the time it is how you view things. So those are just some options of things that you can do. So for mine, like I said earlier, the more specific, the better, but I'm not going to get all into the SMART goal stuff because I don't want to put anyone to sleep. So this is what I'm going to do. So since I am struggling, I can limit my exposure, reframe the way I think about these things. Okay. So that there's something about that makes me feel less stressed already. Knowing that, you know what, I don't have to be so focused on the world, That is something I should not be using my time and energy to stress about. These two things, these are things that I cannot change. So, in order to help deal and cope with the stress of those things, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to take a walk after work before starting schoolwork. So, when I get off work, I'll go home, we eat dinner, and then I start on my schoolwork. So, one thing, which this is something that my psychiatrist has been telling me for a while now, just walk. Take a brisk walk in between stressful activities. So, don't rush straight home from work to start schoolwork. So, take a walk after work before starting schoolwork 2 times a week for 30 minutes. So, I mean, I'm really setting the bar pretty low there. So, to me, this feels very doable. Okay. That's what you want your plan to be. You want it to be something that you're going to do. All right. So, even if your plan, even if you got confused at all of this stuff, okay, don't worry about that. Just pick one self-care strategy that you are going to put into practice in your life. Okay? I don't care how frequent it is, just pick one thing. And it could even be write down one thing positive that happened each week. And the more specific, the better. So, Wednesday morning at 10 a.m., I'll set an alarm on my phone to make sure that I reflect on the previous day. blah, blah, blah. You get the point. Okay, so now that you have your self-care plan, you have your goal where you're headed, next comes step 6. Also, I have a lot more resources that go along with self-care strategies. So if you want more information on that, I can get that to you. Just let me know. All right, step 6, make a commitment to self-care. So decide that self-care is important and make a commitment to it. So self-care can essentially prevent illnesses in the long run. Okay, so there really is no reason not to make a commitment to self-care. So share your plan with a self-care buddy, friend, or family member. And if you don't have anyone to share it with, you better call me up and share it with me. So make it a weekly practice to review and share your progress with your designated self-care support person. So for me, this would be my sister. So we are both really into self-care this past year. We've gone to see Oprah. We've been doing Weight Watchers, all that fun stuff. So we've gotten really into this together, and honestly, having her by my side, it really helps. So there really is some truth to that accountability partner thing. And our final step, step 7, we're almost done. Evaluate your self-care plan. So let's see, for self-care to really work involves 1, deciding that self-care is important and making a commitment to it. Check that off the list. All right. 2, finding what works for each of us individually. So we're all individuals. We're all different. I know I've said that several times, but I think there is a lot of beauty that goes into that. So your self-care plan is going to look a lot different from other people's, and there's nothing wrong with that. But as long as it decreases your stress, that is the goal. All right, so this says strive to incorporate into your life at least 1 new self-care practice a year. That's a good idea. Periodically evaluate your plan's effectiveness by repeating steps 2 through 6. Make any necessary changes and then recognize and celebrate your progress. Okay, so basically, in 6 months, I can probably mark that one off my list. I might even be able to mark that one off my list. Who knows? I might even be able to mark that one off my list. These 2 will still be happening in some way or another. But it's always good to reevaluate your self-care plan just to make sure that you're doing the best thing for yourself. All right, guys. Well, that is pretty much everything. That wraps it all up. Again, I'll put my contact information and all the stuff that we've talked about, all this information with all the stuff that we send out. And like I said, if you want more resources, you need more support, just know that I'm in your corner and I want you to succeed. I don't want you to be stressed out. I don't want you to be lonely at home. Just know that we are here for you and we can do it. And just know that I miss you all so much. And please take care of yourself. All right. Happy International Self-Care Day.